This here is the lathe. The lathe works by spinning material on a spindle sandwiched between here and here. What I've done is I've marked the center of my piece of wood on both sides by crossing from the extents of each corner to pinpoint the middle. What we're then going to do is we're going to line that up on the point of each side of the lathe. These pieces slide inward. We want to make sure that we are dead center. Once you have it roughly in place, you can tighten down on the clamps and begin to tighten this knob to ensure everything is nice and snug where the teeth grab on either end of the wood. Once that's all in place and you've tightened down all the different clamps, you're then going to set the rest. Since this piece of wood is still square, you want to be able to line up the rest with the edge as it would be protruding. You want to be as close as possible without the piece hitting. So you want to give it a couple test spins, make sure you're not going to be, the wood will not be hitting the rest. Now you can set the height. You want it to be just slightly above the center line. And that's to ensure when we go to put our chisel down, we can rest the chisel and it will knock off above without grabbing too much and flipping the chisel up in our hands. Once we have everything set, we're just going to do a double check, make every clamp tight. Sure we're not going to be loose in any way. Give it a second test spin and we're all set. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the machine to show you how this spindle functions. As you can see, the wood is going to spin. Because this piece of wood was cut, it is not perfectly in line. The centers that I found are a little bit off. That is okay because we're going to knock off the edges until the point where we get a smooth cylinder. You have a few different options for chisels and gouges. For roughing out, you want to use a fairly large mouthed gouge. For details, you can use smaller ones. And of course, for making things flat and for putting in square details, you can use a square tip chisel. Some different considerations that you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a very firm grasp. There is a hook in the bottom here where you can hold the chisel, and you want to have a firm grip on the back end of the chisel just in case it wants to grab from you and kick. You can hold and pull back. The other thing you want to do is you never want to come into this too quickly. You only want to take off a little bit of material at a time. And you want to hold that tip of the chisel on the rest at all times. Of course, we're wearing our safety glasses, and you can wear a face shield if you'd like as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slowly chip away, roughing out the main cylindrical shape. So as you can see there, very gradually going across and back and across and back, trying to take that square shape down to a cylindrical shape. I'm going to turn the machine off. Once it's stopped, you can see exactly what we've done. We've knocked off just those top edges. We're beginning to start to take some shape. I'm going to go back in, I'm going to turn the machine on, and now that I've got a little bit of that initial shape chopped down, I'm going to turn up the lathe a little bit higher so that I can remove a little bit more material. What you want to do is you want to start slow when you're roughing out and gradually get higher once you get to that perfect cylindrical shape. Turn the machine off, check out what we've done. Now what you can see is since we've been moving material, we're actually getting a little bit farther away from the center. So we're going to slowly inch our rest forward to decrease the size of the gap between the rest and the wood. This is going to maintain that our chisel is not going to have that big of a gap to hinge on the rest and flick up, hurting us by throwing the chisel out of our hand. Again, we remove material. We're almost getting to the point. You can see where these sections are still flat. That is sections of wood that have not fully captured that cylindrical shape. We're going to keep going. As you can see now, we are fully cylindrical. At this point, you could then decide to keep going by roughing out larger indentations with the large gouge. Swap to a more detailed gouge for tighter radiuses. And then again, of course, flattening out with these square tipped chisels. When you're done, to remove your piece, make sure the machine is off. You can loosen off your clamps, loosen off on your spindle, and pull the piece out. And there you have a dowel turned from a square piece of stock.